had sent that along to all of you, but Candy asked me the same question last week, so let me send that along.
I'd like to call the regular Board of Selectmen's meeting for Tuesday, September 6, 2022 to order.
Candace Bouchard.
Andy Perez.
Josh Kelly.
Todd Archuleta,
Glenn Albanesius.
Stephen Sedlak.
Linda Grappo.
Selectman Bork and Selectman Morhart are excused, and I just wanted to let the board know that this morning, on behalf of the town of Winchester, we reached out to the town of Cromwell, offered condolences for the passing of their mayor. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Agenda review. Anyone have anything?
There is a request from the Winchester Land Trust that they be added to the agenda tonight to consider and possibly act on the submission from the Board of Selectmen, a letter of support for a hopeful acquisition that they have their eyes on.
All right, we'll add that to number 9, new business, section D. Anything else? All right, can we have an approval of minutes for the regular meeting on August 15th?
Move to accept the minutes as presented.
Thank you, Steve. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Candace. Any discussion? Seeing no discussion, all in favor? Opposed? Unanimous? Oh, 5-0. Can I have an approval of minutes of the special meeting on August 25th?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Linda. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Steve. Any discussion? Seeing no discussion, all in favor? Opposed? Linda, you are in favor?
Yes, I'm sorry.
5-0. The minutes pass. Section 5, citizens' comments. The Board of Selectmen welcomes public comments. Speakers may speak once. This round will be limited to 3 minutes. Does anyone wish to speak? Seeing no requests, moving on to item 6, the town manager's report.
Got it. Thank you, Todd. Going down my list, the first thing that I want to highlight is the bachelor school. Let the selectmen know that I am aware of 2 parties at this moment in time that have expressed explicit interest in possibly putting something forward. Obviously, I can't divulge specifics, and I also don't know if they're actually going to submit anything, and I don't know what the contents of that submission will be, but there are 2 parties that do have said interest in putting forth a response to the RFP that we put out about a month and a half ago. So I believe it's September 23rd that RFP process closes. If there's anybody else out there who has an interest in acquiring that property, whether it's reuse of the building or tearing that building down and putting something new up, or whatever other ideas someone might have, it's a very open RFP at the direction of the selectmen. So we're very much looking forward to the new innovative ideas that individuals have for that space. Regarding the Communities Challenge Grant, round 2 of this grant has been announced. We'll talk more about possible applications later tonight. Tomorrow, Ted Schaefer, Economic Development Director, and I have a meeting with a new business that has its eye on Winstead. This is in addition to a couple of the others I mentioned before, a bakery, I mentioned before a bookshop. This is yet another business that's looking to move in that would take up a significant amount of space. So that's exciting to see. Last week, a group got together, a group that consisted of representatives from Hartford Healthcare and Charlotte Hungerford, and the YMCA and the town with Connecticut DEEP to go walk through the Mad River Recreation Area. The purpose of that walk was to inform officials from DEEP about the hopeful recreational trails that might be installed at that site. DEEP is very excited about the idea that that site over by the dam on the western side of our town might be used for greater levels of recreation. Right now it's very informal. The trails out there aren't marked, and they aren't very accessible. They aren't maintained in any way. So DEEP was thrilled to have a local group such as Fit Together, which is comprised of the other three agencies that I referred to, Hartford Healthcare, YMCA, and Town of Winchester. They're looking forward to seeing grant applications in the future come forward to them for the improvements at that site. Regarding personnel, we have had a resignation in the assessor's office. We are now seeking an assessor. So if anybody knows somebody who would like to fill that position, we're actively seeking out a highly qualified candidate. We are willing to work with that individual to help get them certified, and we're looking forward to seeing who applies. And the Hinsdale School. Hinsdale School is up and running and open, and it sounds like everything there is running very well. So those are the few highlights that I'll talk about right now, but I'm happy to answer any other questions that the board might have.
How's the marketing program coming that started in March with economic development? When are we going to see something from that?
My understanding is that Alan Colavecchio has really been the head honcho on that. My understanding was that he was away for about a month in the summer, or at least unable to tend to some of that. So I know there was a little hiatus. I just sat down with Dewey Yeager and Ted Schaefer a little earlier today to talk about a number of different, the Economic Development Commission is actually meeting in the other room right now. So we were talking about what they'll be discussing tonight. And I know that getting back to and completing the marketing initiative is high on their list of priorities. So that group's also putting together, I believe it's going to be on it's either October 4th or 5th. Let me get an exact date before we leave today so that we're announcing that out to the public. But very early October, they will be having a job fair out in East End Park. Alan's also been putting some time forward to creating advertising for that event. I believe that by the end of this week, you're going to see that information widely circulated, but that's a great initiative on their part.
We made it through the last few days without any major flooding.
That's my understanding, so that's always a good thing.
Very good to hear. No further questions for Josh? All right, moving on to correspondence. Does anyone have anything? Let the record show we received the entire board received a letter from resident Bo Black strongly supporting the charter revision question on making the town clerk an appointed position. Anything else? Steve?
Thank you, Todd. We have one piece of business under boards and commissions tonight. We'd like to put forward into nomination name of Frank Oliveri as a member of the IWWC as a regular member. He would be replacing Kurt Timoney, and I'd like to place Frank Oliveri in nomination.
Thank you, Steve.
Second?
Is there a second?
Are we voting on him or are we
No,
nominating?
I think we should be appointing him, not nominating him. We vetted him properly, right? And we have an empty seat, I think. at the moment for inland wetlands, is my understanding.
Yep.
So I would recommend appointing him. We've done the vetting on him.
Just looking at the minutes from the last meeting, I thought,
He was in for consideration. I'm just saying, go to the next step. You know, he was last in for consideration, and he came before the board and suggested the grading around Highland Lake for the, when we do the drainage, you know, and, you know, I would recommend that we appoint him at this point instead of, you know, just move on.
okay, do we know enough in the vetting process? We've had his name for 3 meetings now. The first meeting, we did not place his name into consideration. The last meeting,
No,
we
yeah,
did.
he applied August 1st.
Yes, but we didn't have any information on him. He didn't have his application. It was just a handwritten note.
Oh,
We
but then we
delivered
got the application as dated
That
8/1.
was last meeting we received. That was the first time, really, that he was put in nomination.
We have his address, we know what his party is.
Yeah, we have no information that he's not eligible to serve at this particular point.
Right.
So
It's a
if
suggestion.
it's the will of the board, we can move to that step.
We have, do we know what we have on, for membership on that board,
There's 8 people right now.
including
No,
permit?
He's replacing a
Kurt Timmy.
Republican as a Republican. That's my understanding.
Yeah.
He's replacing a Republican as a Republican, so in terms of,
Oh, not that. I mean,
Right, we don't
Minority
care
voters
the
what the
majority.
numbers, they have quorums.
Yeah.
It's not a quorum issue.
yeah, that's true too.
I'm fine with appointing him if the board is okay with that.
Okay, so I would change my motion to appoint Frank Oliveri as a member of the IWWC.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Candace. Any discussion? All in favor? 5-0. Thank you. Congratulations.
That would be it for now, Todd, thank you.
Do you have a resignation?
Thank you. You have in your package a resignation, a member of the EDC, Tyler Tucker, and please accept my resignation as an alternate member of the EDC. So we would like to acknowledge his resignation and thank him for his service.
So moved. Thank you, Tyler. Moving on to new business. Item A, 22-46, refunds recommended by the Collector of Revenue.
Good. We're back to a list of proposed refunds that looks a little bit more familiar. Last time, we've sorted out some of the issues with that software, so that's all good. You're looking in front of you at 6 different certificates of correction and totaling $1,027.42, and I recommend that the Board of Selectmen authorize the refunds recommended by the Collector of Revenue as presented, all motor vehicle.
Do we have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Linda. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Steve. Further discussion? All in favor? 5-0. Thank you. That's official.
Yes, it is.
And congratulations to Ashley Kelsey, our new Collector of Revenue. Item 22-47, consider and possibly act on approving the purchase of a ladder truck.
We do have Fire Chief Jamie Legassi here in the audience with us today. Jamie, just to kick it off for you, we had, it's no surprise, I think everybody's heard at this point, there was a bond package that was proposed, and part of that bond package was to cover the costs associated with the purchase of a ladder truck. So as time has gone on, the specs, and Jamie can certainly speak more to how the whole specification process has gone with this ladder truck, but you have in front of you information about the cost of the truck, and you have information from me that was provided tonight about, after speaking a little bit more with the Director of Finance, what we would propose the upfront payments cost be, and how much savings we would get as a result of that 50% proposed upfront payment. It's something we think we can bear. It's something we know we can bear, I should say. And it's something that will get us some savings while still having a little leverage before we go forward. But I'll turn it over to the fire chief now so that he can tell you a little bit more about his process and why this is the right truck to go ahead and purchase.
Good evening. So as you know, we've been working on this ladder truck probably since December, since we knew that the bond was gonna move forward once we got the other engine on order. So we met with different vendors, we went out to the Harrisburg show, we've had countless meetings to discuss what we need and to replace the existing tower ladder. So the current tower ladder truck is an 85-foot rear mount platform. The new proposed truck is a 100-foot mid-mount quint. So it'll still have the platform, but this one also has a pump on it. It'll carry a pump and hose, because with our constantly less and less manpower, we just feel that that's the right move to make. It doesn't add a lot of expense to it, but it's the proper way to move forward, looking into the future. So the truck that we're proposing is on the Sourcewell contract, just like the last engine. It's built by Spartan Smeal, same as the engine that we ordered, and we currently have 4 Smeal products. So I'm here to ask that you give me the authority to sign the contract.
Candy?
I'd like to make a motion to authorize the purchase of a 100-foot mid-mount tower ladder in the amount not to exceed that quoted by New England Fire Equipment and Apparatus Corporation in their letter dated August 25th, 2022, and to authorize the town manager to negotiate the best price possible for the town and to sign agreements with the chosen vendor in order to solidify the timely agreement.
Thank you, Candy. Is there a second?
I'll second.
If I may,
I'll second.
would it be okay to authorize me to sign it with Josh's approval, of course? Because any of the correspondence with the vendor typically goes, I signed the last one so that any change orders would be approved, and of course, I wouldn't do it without Josh.
I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
No. Only the town manager can sign the contract. You can authorize change orders, but only the town manager is authorized to sign a contract.
But I'll be speedy when you and I have had a conversation and we're in agreement on moving
So what
forward.
you could do is just ask the vendor, you can give the vendor permission to copy both of you.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Linda's got the second. Is there any further discussion on it?
Yeah, we received information in the package, and our initial intent was to pay 90% of the cost up front, and tonight you're recommending that we pay 50% of the cost up front. So I'd just like to hear some discussion about why the change.
So 90% upfront, that's a big chunk of money, first of all. And as we're going forward, we had the Director of Finance and I had a conversation this morning with our bond counsel, who you met a few months back, several months back now, Matt Sporndl, with Phoenix Advisors. And in looking at when we are going to bond for the total amount of this fire truck, first of all, it probably makes sense because of the length of time it's going to take to make the fire truck that we're going to bond this in 2 separate packages. To bond 90% of the cost up front means that we'd be paying on 90% of the cost up front. And in order to help smooth out those costs and to make sure that everything can be borne by the taxpayers, the town, and the town's budget, it's our thought that it makes more sense to have half of that cost covered up front, half of it paid later in terms of helping us support, first making this payment out of the general fund and having it reimbursed by the bond, because that's what's going to happen. We'll end up making an initial payment out of the general fund, and once we issue the bonds, we'll have that money reimbursed to us, and then have the second half of that payment bonded in the second bonding package. As we discussed, there will likely be 3 over the course of 5 years. So in terms of the staggering of payments. I think that we both are in agreement that that makes more sense. And then, as you can see in front of you, there's a schedule that's been provided to us that outlines a specific dollar figure associated with specific savings that's associated with how much we're paying up front. Jamie, the Director of Finance, and I corresponded about this, and you can answer this question in different ways with different rationales. Certainly, if we pay 100% upfront, they're trying to offer us the best possible price. But if we pay 50% upfront, we can still get a reasonable discount, and we can continue to have leverage with this company. And I think that that's important. When you're making a purchase of, a vacuum cleaner at the store, $150 might seem like a lot, but in the grand scheme of things, if you have an issue, you can still go back and forth. You can come back to the store. You can try and return it, etc. With a over $1 million, $1.5 million fire truck, you're talking about a very big cost, and I think it would be in the town's best interest to have more leverage after careful consideration. So, in the original document that I had written you, yes, I did put 90% down as a possible number, and it was really the Director of Finance who had the viewpoint that 50% was more reasonable on two fronts. And after conversation, I changed my opinion, and I agree with her.
Appreciate the rationale, thanks.
No problem.
Andy?
I think one of the things that this points out is why having a strong fund balance is important, because it allows us to carry some of these costs forward and save money, and in this case, over $20-something thousand, about 24, I think it is, about $24,000. So when we talk about fund balance and we go forward, and we're always talking about that during the budget season, and we go back and forth, and people may wonder why the money's there. This is one of the primary, along with other product purchases that we have, equipment purchases that we have, where this strong fund balance allows us to save money going forward by paying some of it up front, and before we get into the bonding areas.
I'll add on, it also allows us to be nimble. Right now, we have this price in front of us, and of course, we've heard this statement before from other companies working with us on fire trucks. But it's true. If we wait another month, 2 months, we're going to see a 5 to 7% increase just because of parts availability, other people getting in line ahead of us, getting the parts that are available now. They're waiting an even longer time for this to be delivered, which means less service for us, and it also means more expensive parts and more expensive labor as well. So by having that fund balance, we're able to execute this agreement more rapidly.
Wouldn't it be nice to have a showroom with a bunch of trucks that you can go in and pick the one you want?
It would.
It would be nice.
2 questions, Jamie. 1, 100-foot truck is not gonna be any issues in the bay?
No, we're gonna have to, the only thing we have to do is just change a little bit of a wall. We remove the closets that are behind the existing truck, so that's not an issue. Doing the 100-foot just gave us more advantage. 15 feet makes a big difference, and, the mid-mount keeps the truck lower, so we don't have to worry about the height issue.
And do you know, after we execute the agreement, how long it'd take to get?
I think it said 380 days.
390.
390.
Over a year.
All in favor? Unanimous?
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Item 22-48, consider and possibly act on authorizing 2 Communities Challenge grant applications for submission in October.
Thanks, Todd. So if you're looking at new business C, which is number 22-48 in your packet, I'm going to go through some of the backup information for this, which is pages 1 through 4. Page 5 is the actual resolution that you're looking to, that I'm hoping the board will be willing to adopt tonight. So please refer to that, as you're making motions and such. But the Communities Challenge Grant, this is a program that I came to you about back back in 2021. I believe it was early December that I asked for your approval. It might have been late December, but in any case, we sent in 2 different applications. The first one was awarded to us in part, and it really focused on revitalizing downtown. So that's going to help us pave a road. That's going to help us revitalize a building across the street. And all of that money, or not all of it, but we were given a partial award. And with the exception of Sue Grossman, all components of that application were approved. And that's money that we'll have in the bank coming up soon. The second application wasn't awarded to us, but it was noted that we were one of only a handful of towns that made the effort to put more than one application forward, and we were one of the only towns to put in applications that had multiple sub-projects within it. For example, Sue Grossman and a road being sub-projects of the same overall application. So we're on the map. A lot of people at the state have noticed the application that we put forward for that. I was asked to speak about it with a number of other people who are interested in bettering their state grants, and that I was asked to do that by DECD. In any case, I think that we are in a very good position as a town that has needs, as a town that has a lot going for it and that's on the rise, and that has had some recognition from the past application process to also receive funds in round 2 of this grant program. So what I'm proposing today is that we put forward 2 new applications to the Communities Challenge Grant, and they're packaged in the following ways. The first would be called the Winstead Recreation Corridor Project, and it has 3 sub-projects. The first one would complete the Sue Grossman Greenway. The second component is to install ball field lights, and Candy, I hope I might be able to impose on you to describe all of the different fields that this would cover as we go along with conversations. And the last would be to help bring the fit together vision for the Mad River and Rug Brook Recreation area to life with trail creation and greater accessibility in and around that space. Really making all the way from the Torrington City line down Rowley Street, across Willow Street, across Meadow Street, and through the wonderful pristine woods that we have back there by the Mad River Dam. A wonderful recreational attraction for the town, all around, whether it's hiking, biking, playing a sport out on one of our fields day or night. I think that this is a great package to put together. It really hits, as you can read in some of the backup materials that I prepared, it hits on a number of different requirements that they are looking to have met by this program. It's improving public spaces, mobility improvements, livability, vibrancy, and it even has the capacity to help create some jobs. So I think that that would be a wonderful first package to put forward to DECD, and the second is what I'm calling the Winstead Infrastructure Enhancement Readiness Project. It sounds like a mouthful, but the bottom line, the pitch that we would be giving to DECD is that in order to better improve our infrastructure locally, we need to make sure that we have the infrastructure to support the team that's making it happen. And as we've discussed here in this room and in other conversations, over the past year and a half that I've been here, we have a public works facility that is in dire straits. It rains inside sometimes. The working conditions are not great, both for our staff members and for the work that they're trying to conduct, and the equipment that we try and house in that facility. It's not working. The great news is that we do have a we do have a $2.53 million allocation that's been proposed at the federal level in Congress by our senators. My understanding is that that item remains in a bill, and that would be to cover 55% of both, I did confirm this, both the planning and engineering costs related to this construction project and construction. So 55% of the total $4.6 million proposed project would be covered if this is authorized by the federal government. In terms of matches for the Communities Challenge program, federal dollars do count as match for state dollars. So this is an opportunity for us to at least put forward an application to see if over the next 5 years we might be able to get free of charge to the people of Winchester, a public works facility that's really going to work for the people who are inside it, give us a facility that's going to help us increase productivity, increase morale, and improve the infrastructure that we have already here. Other sub-project that would be a part of this is the Raleigh Street sewer line installation. If we're going to have a new public works facility, it only makes sense because of its proximity to the Still River to have it be hooked up to the sewer line. For ecological purposes, if nothing else, it's an environmentally sensitive site because of its proximity to the river. All around, the recommendation would be to have any new structure hooked up to the sewer line. This would be benefited, or rather I should say, this would benefit all of the other structures that are along the Raleigh Street sewer line, or Raleigh Street in general, which would then be able to connect to the sewer line. Again, making ecological improvements and infrastructure improvements for the different businesses and people who live, work along that corridor. So these are the two proposed grant applications that I have outlined for you. Overall, if we ask for both of these, it would be a $5,962,000 request. I have outlined for you what all of the individual matches would be and what all of the different requirements would be. If awarded, we would have 5 years to execute whatever award is granted, and there's a provision within the resolution that you're going to be voting on that you would have the right to refuse any award that is offered to you. I think that's important to note because there are matching funds that are associated with these grant applications, as we discussed with the first award that we were given. And it's important that you have the opportunity to have all of the cards laid out in front of you before you're making final decisions about what kind of match you're committing to or not. So I believe that these are two applications that DECD would really look favorably on and may hopefully approve. I'm honestly more confident in the second round than I was in the first round. It's free of charge to apply, and we have a much better idea of what needs to go into these applications to make them successful and to complete the application process in a shorter amount of time. So overall, I think we're in the best position possible. I do also want to note, so the Sue Grossman Greenway was made a part of a previous application, and it was not awarded. One of the reasons I was told by an individual at DECD that we weren't given money for it is because we were requesting money for a segment of the Sue Grossman Greenway when the segment in front of it hadn't been completed yet. We're now in the process of completing that segment of the Sue Grossman Greenway, which would only leave a $2 million section left, and that is exactly what we're requesting here. So I know that it might seem strange to just go back to DECD with a repackaged proposal for Sue Grossman, but I do believe that the two other sub-projects that it's paired with would make it more palatable and appealing, and I believe that the completion of the current phase of Sue Grossman construction that we're currently in the midst of is going to make it all the more appealing for DECD to approve. And I'll answer any questions that you have.
Candace?
We also have received a grant to take the water across Raleigh, correct? Or was that part of the Sue Grossman that was denied?
That was part of the Sue Grossman that was denied. That was all one application.
Right, so now only we're bringing the sewer, right?
Yep. And water, just so you know,
and-
sewer, it was the
It would be
original
sewer and water
proposal.
for this one.
The original proposal was just sewer, and that is also the proposal within these
Okay.
applications.
And they have agreed to the 140,000.
That is something that would still need to be approved by the Water and Sewer Commission. Unfortunately, they haven't met since this was put together.
Right.
But it would be contingent, and certainly you can make
Right,
any
right,
motion
right, right.
contingent on their approval. But they did approve it when the last
Right.
application went
There was
forward.
no fees associated.
No fees associated with it.
I would say yes, that there were no fees associated. Yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
no,
That's the only-
but I expect that they would be willing to put up 140,000, given that just a few months back, they were willing to do the same.
Right, and it's not saying there's not necessarily a timeline.
Right, it's over 5 years that
Right,
they have to
right,
put the
which
money
is the
up.
same as the bond and everything.
Right.
Where does the water sewer line start on Raleigh Street?
My
an
understanding
end.
right now is that it would need to come all the way down to the Main Street, Willow Street area, all the way up.
To Willow or to Main Street?
I'm not sure if it's Willow or Main, but about between that corner, I believe it would be Main Street, because I don't believe that the recreation building's hooked up to the sewer line
Okay,
either.
I'm just wondering, didn't we just do construction on the bridge? So would that have to be dug up again?
No, the bridge would not have to be dug up again. There are ways to run the lines underneath the bridge,
Okay,
and it wouldn't destabilize the bridge.
okay.
But it's a great question.
But when we were, the other grant was only to take it from, I call it Highland Park up on the hill and cross the street. It was only one piece of it, I don't know. I thought there was more done on Rowley.
I thought we had water or sewer down to DMV. Don't
We may
have
have
something-
water, but we don't have
we have
sewer to
something down
DMV.
there.
Yeah, we don't have both, I don't think.
No, we definitely
We have
don't have
something
both.
down to
We
DMV.
may have water, but we don't have sewer as
Okay,
far as that.
so, Testing my memory, but I wanna go
There's
back.
hydrants.
Huh?
There's hydrants at DMV.
There you
It's
go.
like
So it's
five-
water.
Oh,
Yeah,
that,
like-
that helps.
Yeah.
5-8 years ago, they brought something down.
Yeah,
Yep. And
Yeah.
DMV, my understanding is in the past, they've expressed an interest in being connected to the sewer line, but it's not at that location.
Any other questions for Josh? Do we have a motion? Candy?
I move that the Board of Selectmen adopt the attached resolution in support of the Community's Challenge Grant Round 2 applications that the town intends to submit to the State Department of Economic and Community Development, and that the Board of Selectmen reserves the right to turn down the award in the event we are not able to find a source for the matching funds.
Thank you, Candy.
second.
Thank you, Candace. Any further discussion? All in favor? 5-0. Item D. Jen?
Hi, I'm Jen Perga, Winchester Land Trust. I'm sorry for coming on your agenda so late. We've been working with the landowners and everything came together with this project at the last moment. But I think Josh may have been able to hand you a little bit of information and a map. And so basically the Winchester Land Trust is looking for a letter of support for our most recent project. We're putting in a grant to the state deep open space grant fund at the end of September, and the grant is to purchase 25 acres behind Canavo Spring. The Canavo family reached out to the land trust and they would like to preserve this property. It slopes down to the spring, and they would prefer that that land not be developed because there would be a risk to the spring water. I also brought a map, but I think you have one, or?
It's next to 111 Flat Street.
You wanna read your FAQs?
This is the map that they
Yeah.
have in front of them.
Okay, great. Oh, you want me to read those?
Well, some of them, yeah.
Okay. So just to give you a little background on the parcel, it's roughly 25 acres. It does not include the spring itself. If you had your back to Risha Beach and you look across at the apartments, it's the land on the hill behind the apartments. And right now, the land is in the 490 program, which means it's not generating significant taxes to the town. I would guess around $100 to $200. So that is not going to change a lot with the land trust owning that.
148.
Oh, thank you. And as part of the grant with the state, the state always wants to have public access, and so the Winchester Land Trust would be building a trail, and the trail would go from roughly across from Bachelor's School, across the back of the property, and it would end up kind of in the Alpha Avenue area, and it's that's an area with some paper roads. It's very wooded, And there already is some preserved land there. The Highland Lake Watershed Association owns some small lots, and the town of Winchester also owns some wooded lots in that area that you can see on the map. The project goes along with the town POCD. There's quite a bit of language in the Plan of Conservation Development about protecting our natural water sources that include our lakes, rivers, and springs, and also opening up open space, especially closer to the downtown area. The Winchester Land Trust right now has some parcels and hiking up in Winchester Center, but this one is a lot closer to the downtown and would enable people to access, nature more easily.
Can you talk a little bit about the people using the spring that
Sure.
would benefit from this?
So I've been interviewing people, and I just provided like a week of some of the interviews, and I have about a month's worth of data, and I'll continue taking that data and submit it with our grant. But especially this year with the drought, there are of course people using the water for drinking, and they like the water for a variety of reasons. They like the taste, they like the fact that it doesn't have chlorine, and a lot of people use it for their pets, cats and dogs, and even horses. And with this summer, I met 2 people who have either wells or streams that weren't running, and they were coming regularly to get water for horses. A lot of people were using the spring water to keep their gardens going. And I don't know if you've ever been by the spring when we have a power outage for a day, or last summer with a 5-day power outage. There were cars, 10 cars back, people waiting to use that spring water. So some people are just using it because they prefer the water, but a lot of people are using it out of necessity at times. And so I included some interviews, and people are not just from Winsted. I met people from surrounding towns, New Hartford, Barkhamsted, but even as far as Goshen, and people from Massachusetts who are using the spring regularly.
So where the little star is, that little L there is also part of his property? Or is that, because he owns the property next to it, 111.
The Canavo family does own the land that you're talking about, the little L shape, but they don't want it to be part of the project now. I believe it's their intent in the future to preserve that as well, but right now they want to start with preserving this land that slopes.
Do they then have to do a survey to eliminate that piece?
It's actually 2 parcels. If you look at the town records, I think they're not quite correct, but it is two parcels.
So this is just a letter of support for you getting the grant?
Correct.
There's no other financial implication?
Correct. So the state grant, it's called an open space land acquisition grant, and they can provide up to 75% of the purchase price because Winchester is a distressed community. And then the Land Trust also will be applying to other grants to fund the remaining amount.
Any other questions? Do you have a motion? Danny?
Make a motion to support the Winchester Land Trust's application to Connecticut DEP for a open space and watershed land acquisition grant in order to purchase and protect the Canavo Spring watershed property.
Thank you.
And are in support of a letter from the town of Winchester to
Agreed.
support that initiative.
Agreed.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Steve. Further discussion? All in favor? 5-0. Congratulations.
All right, thank you very much.
Just on the note, Jen, in 1955, the flood took out the water in town for weeks. And the Canavo Spring was a lifeline for much of the town during that period of time. Even though we had to put pills in the water to, make sure the bacteria, well,
Thank you, and I think that's the intent of the family. They want it to be available to the town and
Yep.
people in that manner.
it was a lifesaver.
Does it freeze in the winter? Or
The water still runs.
Oh.
There's ice. You have to be careful on the ground, but it continues to run. And even throughout this drought, it's been running the whole time. Thank you.
Thank you, Jen. Round 2 of citizens' comments. The board welcomes public comments. Would anyone like to speak? Seeing none, moving to selectmen's comments and reports. Candace?
Friends of Main Street is proud to be joining with Winchester's Conservation Commission on September 24th for a new cleanup. It's called the Fall River Cleanup. It'll be, instead of having the tent for Friends of Main Street on Main Street, it'll actually be on East End Park. So we'll concentrate over in that area. We have, it's also in line with the Connecticut River Conservancy, which sponsors its annual cleanup along the Connecticut River, and its tributaries volunteers in 4 states, New Hampshire, Vermont, Mass, and Connecticut, on that same weekend. So it's used to improve the environment and to beautify our environment and improve water quality on the same weekend.
Anyone else? All right, just from me, this coming Sunday, we're approaching an anniversary. It's the 21st anniversary of September 11th. And outside of Shanksville, Pennsylvania, there's a wooden plaque. Plaque reads, "Angels of Freedom. Few can begin to understand what drives men to such acts of desperation, but the world must now know the resolve of this great nation is both unshakable and unstoppable. This day, ordinary Americans took extraordinary steps to help their fellow Americans, and by doing so, gave the greatest sacrifice. And so these Angels of Freedom stand not as a memorial to those who died, but rather as a celebration of their lives for which we will forever be in their debt. God bless the families and friends of the heroes of September 11th, Eric and Tammy Pearson." So on September 11th, just remember, in the days following September 11th, we learned how to be Americans, and I think over the last few years, we've forgotten some of the lessons that we learned back then. With that, Steve?
Just so you know, the Soldiers Monument is having an event on September 11th. Usually most of their events start at 2 o'clock, and they are on Facebook with the information. So anybody wants to go to Soldiers Monument, they're having it.
It is also the same date that the Soldiers Monument was
Oh, that's right, it's a rededication.
on
too.
September 11th in 1890. So they're also going to have it's Men of War. It starts at 2:15, and they're going to have an ice cream social afterwards.
Thank you, Candace. Steve?
Move we adjourn.
Is there a second? Thank you, Candace. All in favor? Unanimous. Thank you. See you on
Josh, when is Whiting Street going to start?
Should be either this week or next week.
Are we going to put the signs like we did for Brown?
19th.